We are now on air. Time for a total takeover.
It's finally here. Welcome to a new episode.
It's about to go down.
When is it going to end, Black America? When is it going to end? On your screen, ladies and gentlemen, you have headlines from here in my city of Pittsburgh. The horrific shootout that happened on Easter Sunday at an Airbnb, where it left 2 teens shot and killed. 50 plus rounds fired, and from the evidence that has been released by the police, shots were fired from outside and inside of this Airbnb property. Now, my question is, again, when is this going to end, Black America? When are these types of violent shootings, murderous shootings, when is this evil going to end? Now, of course, seeing that this was gun violence, the leftists are out screaming, we need more gun control measures in place. No amount of gun measures would have stopped what happened in this case or any other case. Because at the essence and the overall beginnings of what caused these individuals, whatever evil, and I'm talking evil, ladies and gentlemen, that these individuals had in their hearts, whether this was a targeted, which ultimately it has to be, I'm thinking to myself, if this was a random act of shooting, evil. Targeted, evil. Whatever way you look at it, evil. So the gun didn't pick up itself and start shooting individuals or shooting at individuals on this Easter Sunday. No, it took an individual, a person, a man, a woman with evil intentions to start shooting up at each other. When is it going to end, Black America? And when you have individuals like this so-called Black Lives Matter leader in New York City going on Fox News, national television, calling out the mayor of New York, and ultimately ended up calling him the N-word on national television. So he doesn't want to talk about stuff like this that's going across the country, going on across the country, rampantly going on across the country in our Black communities. No, he wants to talk about police interaction with the Black community. What should be done to bring us out of poverty? Poverty had nothing to do with these individuals here in Pittsburgh shooting up at each other and ultimately causing the death of 2 teens. Poverty had nothing to do with it. The police had nothing to do with it. It was the evil within man and women's hearts that caused this. So, Mr. Black Lives Matter leader in New York, sit your punk ass down somewhere and realize everything that's going on in the Black community has nothing to do with police interaction. Everything that's going on in the Black community has nothing to do with poverty and lifting ourselves up out of it. 99.9% of the problems that are going on in the Black communities across America has to do with the Black community and the evil within, the disrespect for one another, the disrespect for life. So please spare me you going on Fox News, calling out the New York mayor and calling him the N-word. This is all I have for today, because I'm to this point And it's been 5 days since this horrific, chaotic scene. My condolences goes out to the families of the ones that were taken, shot, killed, murdered. May God somehow give you some peace at this time. But the question remains, Black America, when is it going to end?
Did it over the Easter holidays. And the Easter holidays, the entire message of the Gospels of the Easter holidays was love one another. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If Jesus Christ was alive today, he would be called a groomer, he would be called woke, and he would be called a socialist if he was alive today. If he was speaking the message he spoke in the Gospels today about treating everybody with dignity, Jesus Christ hung around with prostitutes and tax collectors. He was nailed to a cross because he spoke on behalf of the most marginalized people in the Middle East. And the idea that certain segment of our population has tried to capture the faith and corrupt a message that I may have been a follower of since I was baptized and was confirmed and served on the altar in the course of this.
There's something wrong with his medulla oblongata.
Why don't you wake up and smell what you shoveling?
Mr. President, how soon do you plan to approve the next round? Mr. President, how soon do you plan to approve the next round of military assistance to Ukrainians?
On Title 42, sir, are you considering delaying lifting Title 42?
No, what I'm considering is continuing to hear from well, first of all, there's going to be an appeal by the Justice Department, because as a matter of principle, we want to be able to be in a position where if in fact it is strongly concluded by the scientists that we need Title 42, that we be able to do that. But there has been no decision on extending Title 42.
Both surprised and disappointed, because those types of things really are the purview of the CDC. This is a public health issue. And for a court to come in, and if you look at the rationale for that, it really is not particularly firm. And we are concerned about that, about courts getting involved in things that are unequivocally public health decisions. I mean, this is a CDC issue. It should not have been a court issue.
Speaking of Trapped, should we talk about Taylor Lorenz? You probably don't know her, but whatever. She was a former dishonest reporter for the New York Times, as if that narrows things down, who made her living creeping around the web trying to find people to cancel for saying inappropriate stuff. She's a real jerk. She then became a dishonest reporter for the Washington Post to do the same thing. It's the perk of being a lefty. Screwing up only gets you a better job somewhere else. But in between being a slimy slug, she went on MSNBC to talk about how she was a victim of online mobbery.
Can you draw a picture of what it is like when a surge of harassment hits?
It's completely overwhelming. It's horrifying. And it's not just me either. You know, they immediately dox you and go after your family members. They try and look up everyone who's ever, been associated with you.
You feel like any little piece of information that gets out on you will be used by the worst people on the internet to destroy your life. And it's so isolating.
And terrifying.
It's horrifying. I'm so sorry. It's overwhelming. It's really hard.
It really is. Wow. Now, there's nothing funny about attempting to make people's lives unbearable through online mobbery. Well, unless it happens to someone who makes their living making people's lives unbearable through online mobbery. Then it's funnier than Tyrus trying on clothes at Lululemon.
One time.
I know. See, Lorenz was a breathless online cop who once eavesdropped on an online discussion and falsely accused a tech executive of using a slur. After she was caught, Lorenz bravely locked her account. Meanwhile, like an evil Santa Claus, she kept a blog of names of people who said things she deemed problematic. She was her own cancel culture machine, a goon, a thug, a bully, and when it suited her, a victim. But now, just weeks after she claimed to have severe PTSD over being doxxed, which she claims was due to her gender, she's back to her old tricks, contacting friends and family of the woman behind the popular Libs of TikTok Twitter account. Lorenz claims the woman's posts were anti-gay and inciting outrage, even though the users posted the content themselves. True, the account shows unedited, already public videos of ranty lefties in all their green-haired glory. But Lorenz was so obsessed, she even went after someone with a similar name, which is like me making drug jokes about Pat Timpf. The Washington Post ran her piece complete with the TikTok lady's name and a link to the listing of her professional real estate license with her address. That's doxing by definition. The victim called in to Tucker last night. Let's play that.
How has this affected your life, this Jeff Bezos piece?
I have to make some travel plans, really fast, but I'm now in a location where I don't think anyone would find me, not in any of the locations that Taylor Lorenz leaked.
So after claiming she was targeted, Taylor Lorenz resumes targeting people she demonizes, hiding behind the lie that she's fighting bigotry, when in fact she just gets off on it. And the Washington Post defends her. The paper denies posting private info of Lorenz's target, but they did. Sure, they eventually deleted the link, but what you post online lasts forever, just like those cheesecake photos of Stuart Varney. He's actually eating cheesecake in them. Now, in the good old days, before social media, Lorenz's behavior would have cost her a job. It wouldn't even be a job, actually. She's doing the opposite of speaking truth to power, instead using her power position to target plebes. That takes a lot of balls, right? I put it right up there with our great reporters covering the war on the ground in Ukraine. Now, you've heard the phrase, live by the sword, die by the sword. Well, I came up with it after living with my college roommate, Steve Sword. He was a wild man, nearly killed me. But when you live by the mob, you will be crushed by the mob. What goes around eventually comes around. She's like the mentally ill guy who attacks an old woman on the street, and when the cops show up to physically take him down, he's screaming, police brutality. How can she play the victim? Imagine working with someone like that. Ugh.
I can't take the bullying anymore. Everyone is so mean to me, and I just can't handle the disrespect and how hurtful they are. Okay, I'm a victim, all right? I am the victim.
Can I go home yet?
3 more hours. Shut up, Jerry.
As for Lorenz, she's worked at big-name, powerful media companies. She's got power and clout. She can ruin you just by accusing you of saying something and then amplifying it. Even if she's 100% wrong, she'll never apologize or just collateral damage. She's a grown woman with a massive media company behind her outing the private lives of people. Maybe that's why she's miserable. It's not about being targeted at all. It's about how she targets others. Lorenz enjoyed the hunt and the scalping that comes with cancel culture until it came for her. And still she can't stop. She's just one example of someone who makes a living depriving others of making a living. She decries the mob unless she's leading it. So if anyone would like to protest in front of her house, here's the address. It's number 1 Hypocrite Ave, Jerkville, USA, apartment 666.
Well, it's big news in the media world. CNN Plus shutting down. This is just a month after it launched. Variety was first to report today that CNN's new parent company, Warner Brothers Discovery, will end the streaming service. CNN host Brian Stelter confirming the news himself on Twitter, saying CNN Plus will shut down on April 30th. The cable channel reportedly spent around $300 million to launch a streaming service. Oof, that's a lot of cash. Only about 150,000 people have signed up in the first weeks. Todd Pyro, because everyone wants to watch Brian Stelter and crew and the liberal nonsense and already flailing in the ratings. So what better than to give us more Brian Stelter and CNN?
Well, you think about it from a legal or business perspective. I'm going to come at it from the dad perspective. I'm a busy guy. I get up in the middle of the night. I got a job that's somewhat difficult when it comes to the hours, and I've got a kid at home along with a wife. My streaming options have to be very specific. The content that I look at has to be entertaining, engrossing, exactly what I want. Does CNN provide that literally for anybody? I mean, what did it have? A cooking show? More CNN content that, quite frankly, if we're ranking it, probably is better on the channel, better being a very pejorative term. So what is the draw of a CNN Plus? I think they realized that well after the fact. I think as part of this merger, as Dagan's going to go into between Warner and Discovery, they said, we got to cut our losses now. We got to stop throwing good money after bad. And they threw a lot of good money after this.
They did, Carly, to launch March 29th and then to quote a liberal intel analyst to fall into the dustbins of history on April 21st. Yikes.
Well, first of all, I'm glad that Todd clarified that he has a difficult job because of the hours and not because of who you spend those hours with.
It's really who I work with.
So thank you for clarifying that. But just looking at some of the numbers, roughly 150,000 subscribers. CNN executives were hoping to attract 2 million in the first year, 15 to 18 million over 4 years. But I think, Todd, you are absolutely right. CNN Plus is liberal plus, and you get that everywhere you turn. Whether it's award shows or other networks or TV shows or movies, it's everywhere. So I don't think it is anything different or exciting. And at the risk of, I mean, to promote Fox Nation, I mean, it is just such a better idea when you think about the Patriot Awards as opposed to the award shows that you are getting where it's just liberal nonsense. And then, you know, Fox News is it's a really creative idea to celebrate the real American heroes. And I really do feel like there was a void there that Fox News filled. And that's why Fox Nation is only going up.
Great comparison, Jackie. $300 million. And the funny part of all of this is everyone was noticing it was failing. CNN executives were like, no, this is a success.
Well, $300 million is a lot of money. And it seems to be the word on the street is that it's going to be folded in possibly, even though they say they're shutting it down in with Discovery. And so they may use some of that content to try to squeeze some of it out. But remember, this was Jeff Zucker's baby, right? And so when he was out at CNN, everybody said CNN Plus is going to be in trouble. Also, Charlie Gasparino tweeting that he's hearing that Andrew Morse is going to be out too. He was the executive in charge of the digital platform. So you're going to see more shakeups with respect to the management that was in charge. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for CNN at this point. Depends who they bring in and how they shape their content. But they really need to take a step back, look at the landscape, as you guys are pointing out, and think about how they're programming to viewers. Because when Zucker was in charge, he had a very clear vision. He was okay with the numbers and how it was all working out. But they need to kind of think about how they're going to move forward.
Yeah, okay with failure. Ponder that, Dagan.
This is the final legacy of the poisonous fraud that was Jeff Zucker. What a rolling calamity this is. It couldn't happen to worse people, could it? I'll point out that Quibi, remember that the short video platform that was launched by Jeff Zuckerberg? Katzenberg, excuse me. Jeffrey Katzenberg at the beginning of the pandemic that was one of the biggest financial failures in media history. It lost most of its $1.75 billion investment. That lasted longer than CNN Plus. I think CNN Plus lasted about 1/8 of the time of Quibi did, to put an exclamation point on it. The why now is because Warner Brothers and Discovery just merged. The combined entity you see the struggle that's happening in the world of Netflix in terms of the skyrocketing costs of creating content. That Warner Brothers Discovery is sporting about $58 billion in debt. It did a $30 billion debt offering, I believe, just in recent weeks. So that is a huge headache at a time when streaming is just beginning to struggle, and you've got to cut your losses. If you've only got 150,000 subscribers to something, again, why are you going to pay for something that people weren't watching for free? The 150,000, I can lift my window in my neighborhood and shout at no cost to anybody and reach an audience bigger than that.
It's so true, but President Biden's approval and the CNN viewership, it's a contest, Todd, for how low can you go.
Tie there. That's impressive.
Yes, thank you. I tried.
But to Dagan's point on the market saturation, to tie it in with Carly's point, Fox Nation found a niche. It's giving the Fox News viewer, and quite frankly, not only the Fox News viewer, but that history, that lifestyle that you're not getting other places. The stuff on CNN Plus, you can either get on CNN or on cooking shows or kind of on Twitter.
Did they have
right?
cooking shows?
They have a cooking
But
show.
also,
or they
you,
did.
you actually watched.
Past
You were
tense.
one of the.
No, I read the press release. And so,
It's all becoming oversaturated too. So I just got my first streaming TV. I got an Amazon Fire TV, and I go on there, and there is so much stuff. I'm overwhelmed by it. If I stayed home all day and watched TV for 24 hours, I couldn't watch everything.
and they're giving
that's on
people
there.
what they think they want, whereas Fox gives people actually what they want.
I just taped an episode of Cops with
It's the
Geraldo
best,
Rivera.
with Geraldo.
It is so good.
It's
it
so
was
good.
Hammer Time and Geraldo and a deputy. I'm not going to give it away, but the new episodes hit in May.
And the phrase that I was trying to come up with was not to toot my own horn when I was talking about Fox Nation, but I'm happy to toot our horn.
Yes.
Well,
That's the last thing I want to say about
movies,
this.
Like at Christmas, heartwarming movies. I love it. It's
Yeah.
Nancy
great
Grace.
to watch. Well, and you have that. It's variety, right?
I mean, Nancy and I speak the same language, literally and figuratively.
Exactly.
Let's welcome in now Florida congressional candidate. He's also a current Disney employee. His name is Jose Castillo. Great to see you, Jose.
Thank you for having me on your show.
All right, Amy, so we see this vote, very dramatic in Tallahassee taking place. Obviously, it's going to pass. You know, what will happen to Disney? How much will this cost them? How will this affect their ability to do business in the state?
I mean, it's definitely going to impact them, you know, and their bottom line. And, you know, frankly, unfortunately, it's what's happening is they're getting a taste of their own medicine. You know, Disney, when they came out with the HB 1557, the Parental Rights and Education Law that was signed, they came out with their statement saying that their new company goal was to repeal that law, and they're going to work with national and local organizations to make sure to achieve that. You have to read between the lines. What are they trying to say by that? They're trying to say the only way you can achieve that, actually, is if you get rid of Republicans in Tallahassee, and that includes our governor, our state representatives, and our state senators. So basically, if we now have Democrats in Tallahassee, we're here in Florida, we're going to have higher taxes, we're going to have bigger government, more inflation. Frankly, Floridians cannot afford that. So what's happening right now is basically the state legislature is voting on removing that self-governance for Disney. And if that happens, Disney's going to fall under the jurisdiction of Orange County. And Orange County has a mayor that's trying to raise taxes for everyone. So ultimately, this is going to be really bad for Disney.
Well, that would be interesting if Disney had taxes raised on them by a Democrat. The irony there, obviously, I think can be appreciated by our audience. You know, the question I think a lot of people have, too, is Disney a good partner? Is it a good neighbor for the state of Florida? In 2020, the company laid off thousands of workers and cut benefits because of the pandemic, but reinstated executive pay and salaries in August to pre-pandemic levels. Also back in October of 2015, hundreds of Disney employees were fired and their jobs were transferred to immigrants on temporary visas. And over the next 3 months, some Disney employees were required to train their replacements for those jobs. So my question to you, I know you work there, this might be a little awkward, is Disney good for Florida?
So two things. So like, it has been a good neighbor, but it's straying far, far away right now. Listen, the other day they just came out with news that, you know, Tinkerbell was going to have like some sort of label disclaimer because she's body conscious. So they don't want children looking at that. Basically, that's not appropriate for younger kids. But now all of a sudden they're saying that they want kids in our schools from kindergarten to third grade to be able to be taught by their teachers about sexual orientation and sexual gender. How can Tinkerbell not be appropriate, but teaching kids about sexual orientation and sexual identity be appropriate? It just doesn't make sense. So they have been in the past, you know, they fuel the economy here, but they're straying far, far away. And, you know, people have asked me, because I'm being outspoken as a Disney employee myself, you know, are you concerned about your job? And I've said many times, I'm not concerned about my job because basically I could find another job. I'm already applying for a new job to be the next United States representative for Central Florida. But what I'm concerned about is losing my country. And I've said before, if anyone should be on the chopping block, really, it should be the people that should be good stewards of this company. And those are the people that have fiduciary duties, such as the board of directors, our CEO, and our chairman. Because instead of protecting the investment of our stockholders, they're worried about protecting the feelings of a few small minority of Disney cast members. That's not their job.
Yeah, you mentioned Tinkerbell. I think it's far more concerning that she tried to have Wendy killed in Peter Pan than her body consciousness. You have to know the story to get that joke. And for those at home that get it, I appreciate you. All right, now Disney shares have also dropped nearly 15% in 2022. That makes Disney one of the Dow Jones Industrial Average's worst performers. Again, we see these consequences of going woke. If Disney would just be Disney, the happiest place on earth, and give us our churros and, you know, it's a small world after all, I think they wouldn't be in this same type of situation. But when you wade into these cultural wars, you can't always control the results.
Yeah, and you know, and there's actually two things that people can do to you know, basically correct what's happening right now. You know, we saw a lot of people earlier say they were going to you know, dump Disney, dump their Disney Plus, and boycott Disney. I say we need to do like Elon Musk did. You know, he was not happy with Twitter, so right now the stock is down. Let's go buy stock and let's buy a seat at the table. The next stockholders meeting, we're going to be a loud voice. And we're going to be able to tell them who the boss is, right? So that's how we influence Disney. And the other thing is, listen, I'm running for Congress. Go to my website, joseforflorida.com. I'm going to be a loud voice in Congress, just like I am right now. So go into my website and make a donation. Help me out. And trust me, I will not be quiet. And I'm not afraid of a multi-billion-dollar company. I will stand up for conservative values in Congress.
So you're running in District 9, is that correct?
That's correct.
Tell us what is the issue right now when you go talk to voters in District 9? What is really the main issue for them?
Well, the people in my community have struggled so much. You mentioned earlier you know, when people were laid off, and that was really during the lockdowns on America. You know, basically a lot of the people in my community, at some point in one of the counties here, Osceola County, we had 33% unemployment. This is what that looks like. If you step out of your house and you look to your right and you look to your left, that means either yourself or one of your neighbors is unemployed. Well, in my neighborhood, guess what? All of my neighbors work for Disney, so we were all unemployed. So that is tough. So I understand the struggle that people in my community are going to, and you know, I plan to go to Congress to make sure this never happens again. Yeah.
You don't want to be a one-company town because that's, you know, the reason why you talked about right there is the reason why. Great to see you, Jose. Good luck in your congressional race as well.
This broadcast live right here at the on D. It's yours truly, the one called Melodic. Along with the main man Chief, feeling music, food for your soul. Get the CD, y'all. Come on. Let's not play around or pretend. That use your lifeline to call a friend. This time it's not multiple choice. It's the one they call melodic with the golden voice for your own good. Play the percentages. We evade through these lyrical passages. On top of my game, and there's no secret. Call my home with hip hop. Now let's keep it on the level playing field for the time being. Build these rhymes, cause seeing is believing. Metaphors and similes go hand in hand. The Drum Brothers are truly in demand. From the land of France they reside. This music is universal, instructional, on how to proceed with life. Feeling serene like back the nights of come on. From east to west and north to south, we come to turn this party out. It doesn't matter what mood you're in, we come to make this spin. From east to west and north to south, we come to turn this party out. It doesn't matter what mood you're in, we come to make this musical vibe is just the beginning. Cross the finish line and grow record time. Now who is the one left standing? Carrying the torch, never looking to avoid the supreme mission. Improve this condition, all the while there's cancers and remissions. Looking for alternative medicine. I arrived on the scene with my hip-hop team. More certified specialists, not regretting this nor denying this. Many words can describe this revival. Looking to the name the step of approval. I know when that goal is accomplished. Just look at the dance floor. People begging for more as I explore. Cause I got much more in store. From east to west and north to south, we come to turn this party out. It doesn't matter what mood you're in, we come to. From east to west and north to south, we come to turn this party out. It doesn't matter what mood you're in, we come to. Rock the beats, come together. nothing like a conference. They sent me to moderate the nonsense, filter out all spam and viruses, hack my username and password, insert my firewall has the latest definitions. Don't step to me in your condition. When I'm the father, doesn't have my pure loyalty. Time to pay bills with cash and royalties. Make the effort to release my wisdom on time with this lyrical design. My goal is to proceed. Give hip hop just what it needs. We aim to please, never ceasing to amaze. Just another day in this hip hop praise. But the day doesn't have to end like this. On and on to the break of dawn. When I say hip, you say ha. Hip, hip. When I say hip, you say ha. Hip, hip. Yeah, chief. Yeah, chief. Yeah, chief. From east to west and north to south, we've come to turn this party out. It doesn't matter what mood you're in, we've come to make this ring spin. And north to south, hey, hey, yeah. It doesn't matter what mood you're in,